Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, viewers from wherever you're watching us from. Is your host Jermaine here at Wima Sports, and we are at Osoita Lodge, where guests indeed become family. And speaking of family, we just want to say a big thank you to all the subscribers we've had so far. We've just hit 400 plus subscribers, and we couldn't do all that without you, and we appreciate you so much. And today we have two amazing gentlemen here, still single. They'll let you know if they're searching or not. Yeah, so today we are going to be speaking about sports law as an integral pillar of sports development. And as you can see, we have two amazing gentlemen right here. I'll start by introducing the gentleman on my left, who's at the center. He's illuminating the light between us two. And he's none other than Anthony Nyota. Anthony is a corporate lawyer in the financial sector with wealth of experience in corporate space in the country, and this has exposed him to how to structure organizations, secure deals and contracts between organizations and service provider. He is an organizational structuring consultant. Federations, we need to look for this guy, he helps persons with ideas to put legal structures to those ideas and help them exploit ideas fully. His current major project is right now that he's working with he works with AREPS, which is African Register of Fitness Professionals, where he is head consultant on organizational structuring and sustainability. He's also working with the Fitness and Exercise Professional Society of Kenya to formalize that sector. So watch this space, and they have some great stuff to talk about on that as well. And he has different activities that he shall be letting us know in regards to legal structures, mobilization of trainers, helping trainers register businesses, and etc. And maybe you can say something before we welcome this other gentleman right here.
Thank you, Javed, for that introduction. I think it's it's an incredible introduction. I think I may not need to say much, but thank you for having me on the show and my good friend here. And I think I'm looking forward to enjoy this.
Thank you. The next guy, far left, mkubwa mwenyewe. Huyu ni mse wa Arsenal. Unaona imebidi ati hao tuvalie tisho ya Arsenal leo, just because he beat Chelsea and Manchester United, so he had to come rub it to our face, but it's okay. we understand him. He's none other than Teddy Kegode. Teddy Kegode is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's a senior associate and head of dispute resolutions and policy at Macharia Wamuturi and Company Advocates. I hope I got that right. And he's also a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and he's an accredited mediator. His areas of interest are sports arbitration. Nakwambia leo ndio maana nimekaa mbali nao kidogo. Kiingereza, why? And he's also into public interest litigation, family law, tax policy, and consultancy. He has professional experience in commercial litigation, contract law, family mediation, conveyancing, and legal advisory. He's also got affiliation with family I had already mentioned that he's a family mediator, and he works with FIBA Kenya as well on pro bono advocates at Coalition on Violence and Against Women. Nakwambia leo ni leo. Wow. Sijamaliza hata introduction. Majamani page mbili. He has interaction with sports law and has attended ASBM Sports Law Masterclass in 2019, and he has where the chief guest was Juan de Dios Crespo Perez. who was a sports lawyer who represented Neymar in the multi-million deal from Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain. At least jinangu, naona mamangu hawakulala darasa. And thank you, karibu sana Teddy. And he also has masterclass on sports arbitration and his experience in that he gained in 2022. He's a legal researcher and a consultant with AREPS and FEPSEC. Karibu sana wakili.
Thank you.
Yes. So guys, just to break the ice of today's show, I just want to take you a little bit on sports development. And sports development is a process in which individuals start, stay and succeed in sports. And sports development has a pyramid kind of setup, where at the base we have the foundation, then we have center, after the base is participation, then there's performance, and then there's the elite. So that's the sports development pyramid. So basically the foundation is always where we have most of us participate in sports, high school, pale mtaa, ligi ndogo, for football, and just playing soccer na ile boli ya Peppa Pagile. Wakenya wanaijua sana. Sijui kama mlicheza hii.
Lazima.
I
don't think there's anyone who has not had to go through that.
Maybe except our sisters, but we also had some join us. Then there is participation. Now participation is the level where we have people in high school level participating in the high school games and just getting into semi-professional kind of setup of participation in sports. Then now there's the performance where we have the leagues, and then after the national leagues, now they have the international leagues where now is the elite of the elite, maybe the national team going up, and leagues like EPL, NBA, and those huge leagues where we have elite players being paid millions of dollars or pounds. So that was just to break the ice. So that we get to bring these two together, and sports law is an integral part of that, because for us to be able to have working systems and structures that supports from the ground, grassroots level all the way to the elite, then we need law and we need structures that are working. So that's why we have these two amazing gentlemen with us today. And just to break the ice on your side, if you can tell us about your first 6 years of your life growing up. Nyota.
My first 6 years. That's a very interesting question. Noting that I come from the Abadeas, somewhere in the Abadeas, in the village. So I'm basically what you would call a village boy. So that growing up in my first 6 years, and maybe connecting it to even the sports and the discussion today, is that in the village setup, and in that local setup, there is not much of an exposure in those days, because it's in the 90s. And you're looking at the 90s, maybe if you're looking at a TV or a television set, very few of us had those things. And so we mainly relied on the radios. If we are looking at football, listening to football and all those things, the leagues, the Kadenge na Mpira times, I think those were the years. And so in just that village setup, there was not much of that exposure to what right now we come and have experienced in the sports industry, and indeed the development, even the global aspect of it in all the leagues. And so in those 6 years, I think the best thing that we will do is those games which we will do at home. Mm-hmm. You've talked about the Mpiraia Karatasi, that paper ball which you used to play. I think all of us knew how to make it. Yeah. And it was very interesting, because if you're the owner of the ball, you somehow had all the powers. Yes. You could decide the game ends and ends now. So I think even later we'll be talking about how the structuring of this and how that power plays out. You could even see maybe how you were culturally brought up that if I'm the guy who is holding the ball, per se, I ran the show. I could decide at this point I've been called and taken names. I don't know if you have nothing to do. Yeah, so it was, I think, an interesting setup when I was growing up those first 6 years. Other games, I think, I'm not sure these cars that you are making, and because it's in the hillside, Muranga up there in the Aberdea, so you have all these other games that we were playing around. So we used to actually make whatever we had, use the local resources just to make whatever we thought was football or whatever we thought was a game that we wanted to play. We had those what I would now call them and equate them to F1 and the Formula 1. Now the Safari Rallies where we make those nice wooden cars and then we would go down the slope. I think we used everything and I don't know where we took that creativity. I look back at right now, I don't know where we took that creativity, because I think we were very creative in those ages. We had to create so many tools, so many games, and we actually enjoyed. You remember the funny things is that you would be sent and then you go and just find some boy somewhere and your friends playing football. You even forgot your mother sent you, and then you realize it's in the evening, you don't even remember what, and you have to go home crying. And you're crying at the gate, and then your mother, there's some thrashing to come. So I think if you're looking at my first 6 years, that is the Nyota you're thinking about. Actually, one of the best games now I remember, we used to take these tires. And then we would put water and we had the sticks and we would go and we would compete. It was sort of a Safari for us because we used to. I think most of my nursery school, because I didn't go through these, nowadays there's preparatory of what stage before you go to grade 1. You were just going to nursery school. There was nothing of what you go here and then you have like several classes, PP1, all those things were not there. All of us, we just knew it. But in nursery, if you go and you're younger, you have to repeat that. I think I did nursery for around 3 years. I was very young when I went, so but I remember the whole of that competition with the tires around. So if I'm looking at a game sport, I think this is something that has happened across since I was very young. And it happens maybe sometimes subconsciously that we really don't know what we are doing, or we are just enjoying. I think it's just being a kid. Every kid is playful. I'm yet to come across somebody who never did some of these things that a kid would just say. I mean, it would be unlike a child. That's just want to go and play around. And so in those formative years, I think it was just using what is there, what was available, and what we thought we had access to. So I think that is basically sums up what you look like a small young Nyota 6 years, big tires.
The big tires.
And we are pushing them, and it was a lot of fun.
And the trademark, I remember the trademark of the big tires will always have bumps here.
Yes.
We have to take hits.
That's what the years.
So Teddy?
I don't have much recollection as my friend has, but what I can relate with almost everything that he has said, save to add that I was not a village boy per se in the strictest of sense, but what I can relate is the community where I lived. It was more of an organized community. There was a playground, there was a stadium, the famous 64 stadium in Eldoret. There was that space for children to interact and to play. But what I can recall from my first 6 years is Safari Rally. Because I think one of the routes that the initial Safari Rally, it used to pass to Eldoret. So that was more of a thing that I could relate to at that age, and also playing with friends at the community playground. But what I can just to add impetus in this discussion is that there needs to be more keenness in creating societies, communities where there's those facilities to enable children develop their potential in different areas of sport at that early age by providing those facilities at that early stage. So for me, I appreciate my childhood by the fact that the community was structured, the urban planning considered all the factors of playgrounds, a stadium, a health facility. So my interaction, I cannot say much, but relate to what my colleague has said.
Yeah, very true, very true. And high school, did you play any games, Teddy?
Yes, I was a rugby player.
Which rugby team do you support nationally?
Nationally, I support Mwamba.
Mwamba?
Yes.
Oh, now what happened to Mwamba these days? KCB Kabras took over. Nyota, high school?
In high school, I had, I would say, a glimpse of participating. And I did hockey, but I think around Form 3, I went out of the game because I think I had some other engagement which was also eating up my time. But I actually did hockey Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. Went to a few leagues, but yeah, I think I didn't engage it now when we were in the climax, because when we were in the Form 3, we were the class that was actually taking over.
Yeah.
That used to happen, so that I think I joined the formative years, but then I moved out. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in reference to the brief explanation I had on sports development, sports development always looks to have, at least on each level, in the increase of participation, either by the low level students growing up to the ones who are participating now, high school, hockey, rugby, and the next level, which is campus, which is almost getting to elite, but not elite because we have some campus teams in the National League, so it's semi-elite. And what made you fall off from rugby after campus, Teddy? And maybe Nyota, what is it that made you fall off from hockey? Because you look, I thought of hockey. I don't know why I thought of hockey when I saw you. Teddy, what made you fall off from rugby? Was it? Do you think the Rugby Federation didn't engage rugby players in high school for a transitioning phase to the next level, or what do you think as we now start getting into the main topic of today?
Yeah, but for me, hanging the boots was basically getting distracted in campus, but from the way I view it when I was playing in campus rugby, I think it was a good thing for me in terms of keeping myself physically fit. And campus, there are many distractions, that's why I hang the boots. But in terms of sports, at that moment, the moment I was in campus, there was so much energy in the rugby arena. There were so many sponsorships, and there were many these local leagues, like for instance the Prince Louis Sevens. There were so many interactions. There was the rugby 10-a-side in Nakuru, which our campus was a very formidable force in it. We won it at some point. Alex School of Law, I can remember very well. So my living sports was more of lacking guidance. It was just more of playing it for fun, and that glamour and that it brought when you are in campus, being seen as the rugby guy. But looking back, I feel that I could have continued playing this sport for many reasons, just for keeping fit, and also for that interaction with that extracurricular activity that does not involve the formal work. I think our failure comes in when we fail to take sports as an integral part of our growth. We only look at what is formalistic when we forget the importance of sports in our growth and development. Yes.
Okay. Nyota, Teddy mentioned the issue of guidance. Do you think that's a structural issue within a specific rugby federation? Or who do you think the onus lies of guiding players from high school level or primary level all the way to following these players through FIBA programs or something to the national league, to the national teams?
It is a structural issue. Why I say so is because when we was just talking, I had some insight and thinking. I remember when we were coming to Form 1 and we all were asked, I don't know why those days every school you have to have a hockey stick.
Yes.
What was happening? I still, and since I did have so many games maybe in my village school and wherever I schooled, because I still school really in the village. So I think hockey was the easiest thing I could relate to, because I was asked to come with a hockey stick. And it was an easy feat. I think for me, I didn't follow the football when growing up so much, but hockey now at least I thought maybe there's something, and so, but now I'm looking and thinking, number one, there's the question of the space and the place of sports in, and especially when you think about our parents and how they view sports vis-a-vis education. So that I think by the time I was getting to Form 3, you really have to sit down and think, by the way, mpira utacheza hapa ni kusoma sasa. You know, that whole internal conversation that you know at the end of the day there are these careers which have been placed that these are the careers to go to, and this is what, so that if you're doing anything, music, drama. I was actually in music, I was in drama. I think I had several interests around several interest areas, but still all those things I had somehow to put them aside and ensure that, hey, by then let me focus on books, because at the end of the day you go and tell your mother that you're going to be a singer. In nowadays, I think nowadays it's very easy. It's easier. It's becoming. But I think when in our time the philosophy at that time is become a lawyer, become a doctor, become engineer. So the structural issue is both, I think maybe it's a natural consequence of where our parents came from and how they viewed life. Remember, their generation is just speaking from after colonization, and Kenya is becoming a state, and now we are looking at the whole liberalization of the economy so that the black people can get to power, and now they can start getting part of the economy. So the best that they knew is the guys who are learned, they are getting jobs. So that it was actually a job. Everybody was thinking, where do you get a job? Nobody was seeing any field like sports or anything. This drama, we did all those things in high school. After that, most people, it's very hard to transition because, and I think it's just about the culture. Right now, it's a bit easier. You find even children getting into this acting and all these sports and all these other issues. So, one, it's a historical issue, and it's also a structural issue that maybe to the viewers and to those the persons who are running these federations and all these institutions, from government to the federations, they need to think about tackling this issue and tackling the root of this issue, which is one, a historical problem, that we have not given sports the same strength that you would think as a lawyer, that there's a way lawyers are viewed. I'm a professional in the legal side. A sports person is a professional in the sports side, if you think about it. So we are generally doing the same thing. We are all professionals. It's only that we're in different fields. But historically, this sports side and this art side, which I would call it, nobody has really thought about it. And so we have developed so much of these other areas. And so it's very easy, by the way, for somebody in high school to be told to leave sports and go to focus on books. You would do it naturally because of that historical. So it's a structural issue that from the federation side and those persons who are moving this industry, how do they ensure that this historical issue is now managed in a structured way so that we have more engagement with these people, and then we place these sports at the center of the economic development of a country. Because we focused on this other side, the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers and all this, and we forgot that there's a whole economy which could still be growing on this other side. So we focused on a formal sector, we forgot the arts totally, or somehow maybe it was easier to focus on this side than this other one. And so it's a structural issue which anybody who is trying to resolve this issue has to first understand that maybe background. Why do we have fewer people getting into sports? Why do I have to let it go very easily and just focus on books? Like in campus, I never did anything about sports. I actually don't even remember. I even there's a time actually found that there was some league happening in from UN. And so I was like, oh, you mean people play? You know, it was like, and yet I remember in high school, maybe like the time I was doing hockey, I was very interested. We used to go to and we used to play all this. But somehow I realized maybe because of that, where you're told they focus on this side. And it's very natural for you even to look and see, you don't see a future in sports. Per se. And then for us who come from the village, if it's not books, you really don't know these are the these things. You think them, but these are the town guys, the old guys. Us in the village, the Vitabu, but you know, you could look at all those guys before us and you know, I mean, look at here. So maybe I didn't have a story to relate to that is somebody who is successful. Until now, when the Kipchoges and all these others are coming in the sports field and you're thinking maybe I can build a career there. Nobody has really focused on this part of building this industry so that we can have relatable career paths. So that nobody thinks that being an athlete is a career path, but I think a lawyer is a career path, you see. So it's a big structural issue that how we have even run the federations, nobody focuses on this. And maybe when we get to discussing how that is structured nationally, you will see, you will see more about how this structural issue now trickles down to everyone, and so that the society per se does not really move forward.
True. True. That's very true, viewers. And you know, sports industry is growing and is becoming really, really, really wide, and it has its own economy, as Nyota has said it, because in sports industry we have athletes, not only athletes. Now we have sports lawyers, we have sports surgeons, we have different specialities. We have the media guys, we have the security, we have it's just an entire economy of itself. And I remember we had an athlete here who plays for the national team, Ariel Okal, who said it's $1 million industry, and it's something where we need to tap into. And now, just moving forward, I think you've already mentioned briefly on how you decided to get into law, because Teddy, how did you end up doing law after high school?
I think after high school.
Yes.
I think it's a decision that came out way later in my life, because once you are in high school, you are more concentrated in meeting certain grades that will push you to the university, and you're not having that conscious decision that I really want to be this kind of person. Initially, I wanted to be a doctor and stroke a pastor, but those interests changed.
Pastor Teddy.
Yeah, physics became difficult and all manner of things. But after living in that community, living with different people from different walks of life, and you could see my peers falling off into drugs and crime and everything, I felt that my active role in the society will become someone to represent these interests in terms of the youth who have fallen off into crime and all manner drug abuse and all manner of things. They are not eliminated from the society, but they are looked into in terms of reforming, rehabilitating them, reforming them into productive people in the society. So that is what inspired me to become a lawyer. Yes.
Nyota?
Mine, you know, I keep telling people at some point I used to laugh with Teddy and tell him, for some reason I didn't know that when you do law you become a lawyer. There are things I don't know, you call them fate or you call them chance. But all I remember is that when we were in Form 4, when we were choosing the careers, that time you will now choose what you want to go. The only thing I really remember is choosing law as the first, the 3 slots. I can't even remember what I wanted. Growing up, I think in the village, the only person we knew was a doctor in our small dispensary. So it was very easy in class, everybody, doctors, we were all actually doctors. I remember in my primary school, back in the village, all of us were just wanted doctors. And maybe it's because of that exposure that the only person we knew was her. But coming to high school, I got a very keen interest. Anytime we started talking about government issues, history, and we went to that last topic of government structures and who runs what, the judiciaries. It was so interesting that the only thing, and then my name was Anthony. So I thought Attorney General Anthony. You know these things. I think I was just trying to relate. Okay, I have an interest in this side of history, this government side. And so for me, the only thing I knew, maybe these guys who, the Attorney General, they have done law.
Yeah.
It later hit me, by the way, I really never even thought that when you do law, you're supposed to become a lawyer. I just knew for me to go to government or to be in that space,
You have to do law.
I have to do law. So all I remember is I just put law, the rest I just picked things just to feel. I can't even remember to date what I really was choosing. But that was how I found it. And then when I get to law school, it was actually interesting. And so I thought, this is a one side I want. But I didn't have that conscious decision when growing up that I never saw a lawyer in my village. So I only came to now see I want this side of hizi vitu za serikali, and I thought, maybe I need to be, and tulikuwa tunafunzwa the Attorney General does what, and I thought Anthony. So you know that sort of thinking.
Yeah.
It was just at those.
Yeah.
I think that's how I bumped myself into
Law of attraction.
Totally.
So probably now if you could tell us about what you do in law, what each of you, what do you do in law briefly, currently?
As you put it in my introduction, I'm a senior associate at the law firm of Mashari Amturi and Company Advocates. I'm basically engaged in litigation basically representing clients and institutions in court. But my keen interest also is in dispute resolution, alternative dispute resolution, which involves mediation, arbitration, and as I've indicated, engaged in mediation through the court annex mediation program, and also through the FIBA pro bono family mediation program, and also I work for pro bono work. I do representation for victims of sexual violence under the mandate of Coalition on Violence Against Women cover. Yes, that's
sasa boy child anaumia. Wana women too. Umepangaje na boy child?
I believe the growth of the society should look on a general perspective, not on a gender perspective. And I also appreciate that women have been victims of this. The structures of patriarchy have really put women aside in terms of areas of growth and abuse and discrimination, which the saddest bit is that sexual violence that is meted upon them. And that's why I took that interest, so that my career is not focused on the allure of money, but also serving society. Yes.
Nyota, if you could now just expound more on sports law as an integral pillar of sports development. What is sports law?
No,
because I understand even in most legal learning institutions, varsity level or KSL, most people don't view sports law as an area to be at. Maybe you can correct me if I'm right or wrong. So maybe just tell us what sports law is, just for understanding purposes.
So basically, law has developed in a very interesting way, and maybe this could be what happens even in the other medical field or any other field, that things develop when there's an interest in an area. So that maybe before there's the litigation side, which has maybe dominated the industry, where people need to be represented. And so that litigation side has really developed very well. And then when we started now having companies and corporations, the corporate side, which I am currently in majorly, now that area developed so much. So I am an in-house counsel at a corporate in Kenya, so I'll be there helping them with policy development, formulation, negotiating deals, negotiating contracts, ensuring that the organization meets all the regulatory issues. So that side has really developed, and just from a corporate structuring point of view. So that the sports law now, because maybe of what I had talked earlier on the historical development, that nobody was really focusing on this area, then maybe nobody even thought about sports law or what is this sports law and what it is supposed to do. So sports law, generally, if you're thinking about this, it's just the legal regime surrounding the area of sports, the relationship between the different actors and stakeholders in this area, and how does the legal framework look, and how does it connect these people, who plugs in where, who regulates what, and what are the repercussions of the different legal regimes. So if you're trying to just think about what sports law, it's just basically that legal framework guiding the legal players, the clubs, the federations, who runs what law applies to who. So basically, if you're thinking about it, that is what sports law is all about.
Awesome.